one suspect dead after the shooting last night at the Dallas rally. Joining us now, terrorism analyst Matthew Graham, a former police officer in the Seattle area, currently involved in police tactical training. Thanks for coming on again, Matt.
Thanks for having me.
What troubles you most about this attack?
Well, what troubles me the most is the fact that it actually happened. And one of those, what I mean by that is what we're seeing is a terrorist act that has a level of sophistication in its easiness. In the simple way that it is portrayed, it's extremely complex. So you don't need a lot of planning in order to execute something like this. You just need a desire to do it. The same thing that we saw in San Bernardino, the same thing that we saw in Miami, we're seeing here. The U.S. spends a tremendous amount of money training its special operations troops to be able to act autonomously. And that's what we're seeing from our threat side. This is worse than something that has years and years of training behind it. This is individuals who believe the same way, who take military principles. The words that you guys are using this morning that we're seeing from this attack, snipers, ambush, explosive, all of those things that we attribute to military style, we're seeing played out just because someone chose to do it. And that's very difficult to stop.
Yeah, and it's frightening because they believe they have the right to do this, where they think that it's okay to become snipers, to put out bombs. We have 5 officers dead, 11 total that were attacked. We could have had 11 dead, and it was coordinated possibly within 48 hours, whether it was over social media or a few people just getting together and saying, hey, let's do this. How do you stop this and prevent this at future anything, any event, any concert, any rally, any protest, anywhere?
Absolutely, and it goes to a cultural piece, and I think that's one of the things that we would need this morning from the president is, yes, he is speaking to how this is unacceptable, yet every statement he makes, he uses the word but, and I think that just leaves the door open for people to justify what's going on. He'll talk about how this is devastating and we don't do this, and this is the role of law enforcement in America, and then he'll say, but, you know, not everybody is the best cop on the street. That's something that ambiguity cannot be present in what we're doing today. It can't be there in our military strategy overseas, and it can't be there in a law enforcement strategy at all.
Perhaps what's more concerning about this Dallas attack, as we called it, an ambush, snipers, and alike domestic terrorism, Matthew, is that it happened here at home, Americans on Americans. This isn't a radical Islamic terrorism right now. This is perhaps racism.
It does. It makes it really worse, doesn't it? Because it's one of those things that as we go about our lives, we just had the 4th of July where we were, celebrating all of us being Americans, but obviously there are deep rifts and divides in America, and people are willing to act upon those. It's very much an us and them culture, depending on who the us is everybody sees it as their individual championed cause, and when this is an acceptable result of that, of a group of individuals being able to come together on short notice and exploit an opportunity for their gain, then I don't know where we are.
We're all grieving, of course, with the families in Dallas of lost lives and have so much gratitude, as President Obama said, for all the men and women in blue. He used the terms vicious, calculated, despicable attack, that this was horrifying overall. Now what are we going to hear about gun control? Is this going to come into play now? Because he already alluded to that. He said we'll leave it for another day. But it's now the time. I mean, what do you think?
It's an interesting point. I don't know that we can spin the tide on a gun control piece. I think that what has happened over the past 8 years of his administration, just looking at the numbers of people buying and purchasing weapons, I don't know how far down that road we can start to turn from. It seems to be that regardless of whether it's an elementary school or a Christmas gathering or now law enforcement, open season on law enforcement, that as a country, nobody seems to be willing to go down that road. And that, from an analysis standpoint, that's a little confusing.
Matthew Graham, terrorism analyst, thank you for your time this morning. We really appreciate it. And just to get our viewers up to speed,